Hello everyone, and thank you so much for watching this video. And this is a follow-up from our August 10th adjunct training session that we had. And one of the reasons why we waited a little bit later than what we typically do to provide feedback and or put out the survey is simply for the reason that we wanted to have some discussions with our full-time faculty on a few of these things that were brought up at the adjunct training session. And I believe this was the major ones that we walked away with. But if I missed anything, certainly send me an email and we'll go try our best to find you an answer. And certainly for those who attended via Zoom in that session, if you have any feedback for us about what went well, what did not go well, or what we should do different, we would love to have that feedback as well. So with that being said, thank you for watching this. Thank you for attending. And this video is really meant for all of our adjuncts. We had some who had met the January requirement, and we had some who, because of the January requirement, did not come, which is perfectly fine. And we had a few who something came up at the last moment and they could not attend, and we understand that as well. So this is kind of meant for everybody because it's kind of general information. But as I go through this, if a question comes up, please don't hesitate to send me an email and we'll try our best to get you some feedback. So what we kind of walked away with from our big breakout session was one of the things that we had to do, or we're still working on, is trying to align the online practices with our TSB practices. And frankly, that is something that the department chairs are working with their departments to try to come up with the best practice between those two to make sure that from a student experience that they're gaining everything that they can, but equally important, trying to balance those expectations out with real world expectations. Because as the adjunct, we recognize that your availability at times is somewhat limited based on your primary profession. So we're still working our way through that. We still haven't got completely done with that yet, but that's one piece that we do owe you feedback on still, is this alignment of these practices. And if you recall, this was kind of our internal practices when we first launched the 8-week format, talking about what the format was going to be, requesting you not to make any alterations to it without having a discussion with the applicable department chair, or the SME. So we wanted to make sure that that occurred, but equally important, to make sure that you engage with the SME and or the department chair if you find a good practice that we can adopt. Also to provide the information that the student needs on how to contact you, providing virtual office hours, providing feedback on graded assignments and your interaction overall. And I think we even said that, hey, we wanted you to do a recorded 40-minute, either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday evenings on a recorded virtual office hours. And some of the feedback we got there, what we didn't realize was the storage requirements was one of those. But the other one was that because this was not a mandatory meeting per se, that a lot of students just were not showing up, who were not requesting or even needed a office meeting. So therefore, quite a few were just sitting there by themselves. So that's something that we're looking at as well, to try to make some fundamental changes with that. And certainly it was we were trying to, what we thought, to ensure that we had a good interaction between you and the students. But the recording piece is something that frankly just got past us. So no reason to record the session, especially if no one shows up, but equally important because of federal regulations of private information. You certainly want to gain their permission before you record them. But equally important, if you are going to record it, they certainly have the option to hide themselves so that you can't see their picture in their video as well. So we're trying to take that information and we're trying to marry it with the university's expectations when it comes to online course content, which was effective. This came out from the Association of Vice President of Adult and Graduate Programs, Dr. Dave Dahmer. And you can see here, this was really driven from the standpoint to ensure engagement, telling you how many out of 7 days you have to be in, logging into that Moodle shell, making some type of interaction with your students, either by addressing the discussion forums or their chat messages or any assignments that they may have, giving them feedback, and the time limit to which greater than 36 hours between your signing in and engaging into that course shell is a trigger point that we start looking at, and in some cases we'll be reaching back out to you to make sure you're okay, see what's going on, and see what we need to do different so that we can ensure that the student has access to you and that you are engaging into that course. So we are trying again to look at this, and we owe you feedback as to what's going to be the final product between these two documents. So they're pretty close anyway, but we just want to have one consistent voice. So we're working on that as the department chairs and Dean Best and myself, and we're continuing to do that, and we owe you some feedback on that. So the next topic that we wanted to provide feedback on was associated with the load configuration policy. We got a lot of good questions with reference to how do we come up with the MBA pay or the pay delta that we see, and when you're below 10, what do you do? When you're above course cap, what do you do? That was some of the very same discussions that the faculty had at our joint faculty meetings as a university. Then we had a separate TSB school meeting. Some of those same questions were still there, and some of the questions were such a magnitude that we felt compelled to invite the Vice President of Academic Affairs over to a TSB school meeting to reiterate, try to gain some clarity on some of these questions. I think all of us walked away with a understanding of why changes occurred, yet we still have some lingering questions with reference to the load configuration policy. So I don't have a definite answer for you yet, other than this, is that for the new minimum number of students is going to be 10 in a class, and that if it's less than 10 in a class, then we're at a decision point whether we're going to let that class continue on. And if it does continue on for a variety of reasons, it may be that's the only time we're going to offer that class. It could be that that class is needed to meet student graduation or some combination thereof. We did offer some this semester, and we went through that very same process, and some of them simply was by the time we got the policy that was approved and got it enacted, we were almost too late to make any significant changes without disrupting the entire, for some students, their entire schedule. So we chose to go forward with less than 10, and we're just so appreciative that your willingness to do that. But with that 10, less than 10 minimum, let's say that a class only had 8 students, then that you should have received a contract at a reduced rate, or 8/10 of that load for that particular class. But the final number will be determined after the clean drop period, which is typically 2 weeks within the session. And it's my understanding that if I started out with 8 and I ended up with 7 after week 2, then there will be a revised contract that will be issued with that, with the appropriate compensation for those 7 versus the 10. So that certainly is a change for us. Now, the thing that has not yet been resolved, but still on the table, still being discussed, is the what if you're above cap? What do we do there? So I don't have a definite answer for you there yet, other than to tell you that we're still working on it. We're still asking those questions, and the commitment we got yesterday in our meeting was that it's still on the table. Still working our way through it. So that is another issue, excuse me, another feedback that we owe you when the course is above the cap. And again, thank you so much for your patience, for your understanding as we work our way through this transition as well. Another thing that came up from the adjunct meeting was this late work policy, late work policy, meaning that in all of our syllabi, you see that statement that no late work will be accepted. Well, we discussed that at our first faculty meeting, first TSB school meeting, excuse me, and what we decided was that we don't want to change that. And there is this statement right here: late work will not be accepted. In the general consensus was we were not going to change that. And there's obviously there's two trains of thought that, you know, with working adults, we certainly want to teach them accountability, responsibility, business acumen through academics, real world settings. You know, you would never think that a worker in your workplace would arbitrarily or just willfully miss a deadline. So we kind of want to hold that standard with that. Yet on the other side of that coin is that, well, in the workplace, if an employee did miss a deliverable, you would not fire the employee per se. You would hold them accountable to that, and they would be justly rewarded for missing that deliverable. Well, in the world of academia, it kind of means that we wouldn't fail that student for that particular class, but we may not accept that work. So it went. This is a discussion that kind of again goes back and forth, back and forth. So at the end of the day, what the faculty had indicated is no late work will be accepted. Now, let me tell you what I do, and this is my practice that I do. I follow this policy. If a student misses at a deliverable, then when I go to grade that paper, that assignment, whatever it may be, I'm going to enter in a 0 in their grade book for that assignment. And then I'm going to immediately turn around and send them an email. And I'm going to let them know, hey, this was late. You got a 0. I'm wondering what happened. What assistance do you need? Now, that does not mean that I am going to accept late work, but what it does mean is this is part of that engagement with the student. I want the student to tell me what occurred so I can help them find a way to be successful so that I can influence, hopefully, that behavior. If it is a bad behavior, to turn that behavior around so that the next assignment will not be late. But equally important, that when they jump into your class, they will know that late work is not accepted either. So I want to engage with that student to offer them the opportunity to explain so that I can influence that behavior. And I will admit, there has been a few times when they had a very compelling reason as to why it was late. And in some cases, I have accepted late work, but it was almost, and I'll give you this example where I had a student who was pregnant, having a baby, and she was having difficulty with the pregnancy and had spent just about, out of a 7-day in a 5-week block, she had spent 5 of those 7 days in the hospital. And by the time the young lady got home, she had 0 energy to which to do her assignment. So in a case like that, where it has an extreme mitigating circumstance, I will listen and make an appropriate decision. But out of the gate, late work, you will get a 0, but you will be granted the opportunity to explain what happened. The other thing that was on the agenda that was discussed was the attendance policy. If you recall, in the old 5-week model, we had 2 and out. If you missed 2 classes, you were out for, didn't really care about the reason, you got failed the class. Well, the faculty discussed that too, and we landed on that we did not want to incorporate a new 2 and out or 3 and out or 3.5 out and anything like that. So what we kind of decided in this new 8-week format, since it's more of a online format, in the 8-week seated format, it's kind of, there's only a few locations, a very few small courses that are being offered in the seated format moving forward, and we're moving more to the online. We just decided that for the online piece of it, as well as the 8-week seated, since there's so few courses, just to follow the UMO policy. So the UMO policy you will find in the UMO undergraduate, adult and undergraduate catalog. And for those who teach on the MBA, we have an adult graduate catalog as well. But all 3 catalogs, and even one for the traditional students, kind of say the very same thing. In the attendance policy, you still see the evening seated courses as well as the online courses, and we do know that we do offer in a very few instances adult seated courses, but they're limited. Most of them now are online. We still have the Wednesday night if you're in the online world. If you're in a seated environment, you don't have to do this. And if you see that in your 8-week template, you certainly have the option to hide that, so you don't have to deal with this when it's a seated course. But in the online course, we want to make sure that in that midweek checkup, especially in week 1, if we have a student who has not done anything within that course, that we can reach out to them to try to get them engaged back again, to keep them in that seat, or part of that retention strategy. And as you can see, this is an actionable assignment. A student just touring the website of your Moodle shell does not constitute engagement for an active upload or a graded assignment or actionable assignment. And that actionable assignment or graded assignment is really determined by our federal regulators and how we determine when a student does meet attendance requirements. So again, they just cannot log in, and we say it here, they just can't log in and not submit work. They've got to submit some type of work, and once they submit that work, they can be recorded as being attended for that class. If you're using the in the 8-week model, certainly this Wednesday night attendance is not required unless you're meeting Wednesday night. And then certainly whatever night you are meeting is how you want to ensure that your attendance module is set up to meet that nightly attendance. So here are the values of present, late, absence, and excused absence that we have, the options you have in Moodle. And please bear in mind that an absent and an excused absent, as far as federal aid purposes, is the same thing. So a student may have an excused absence, but that does not excuse them per se from the impact to their federal aid. So they need to understand that. Now, a student obviously misses a physical class meeting without a pre-approval discussion with you certainly constitutes an action. A student who does not upload an actionable assignment or a graded assignment in your online class also misses that attendance requirement as well. And we kind of say that here, that for the late for online class, frankly, they're not going to be late. Either they're going to be there or they're not. Either they're going to upload their gradable assignment or they're not. It's not because they're late, it's just they didn't do it, so therefore they would be absent. So how do you go about determining an excused absence in both a seated as well as a online course? Well, it kind of says it's here. Excused absences are at the discretion of the course instructor and may include what I consider to be mitigating circumstances. And this is just a few: personal illness, family emergencies, if they're a student athlete and they are engaged into an approved university event. Poor time management skills certainly to me is not a mitigating event. Work-related activities, that is a judgment call. I typically will tell a student, well, the price of admission in an accelerated program, that going into a program such as this, is that you have to have flexibility in your workplace in order to be successful in that. I can't manage your workplace for you. That's something that you have to manage. But if it's a personal illness or a family illness or a death in the family, even here, I've had a few students who I recall 2 years ago where there was a lot of flooding in a neighboring county, and I had a few students who basically lost their homes. And as a result of that, we had to make some adjustments for those type of students. But those type things are, again, those things that are mitigating circumstances that's really beyond a student's control. But what we finally decided in our school meeting was that it's at your discretion. And at any time, if you would like to discuss this to gain some additional insights, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Any one of us, the department chairs, would be glad to have that discussion with you. But for the attendance policy, we're not going to do a 3 and out or 4 and out or 2 and out. We're just going to say, follow us in the UMO handbook. And the course catalog. And if you have not had a chance to go review that, there are 3 of them posted to the registrar's website section of our UMO website. So please take the time to go do that. And again, if there was something that I missed in this video, please let me know. For our Zoom attendants who attended the meeting via Zoom, if there's anything that you saw that we could do better, please let us know. And the last thing I would love to discuss with you is the fall courses. I'm sorry, let me back up. There was one more thing I would love to discuss with you, and that is the attendance. The attendance in the online world and in the seated world. Depending on what day of the week you're meeting in a seated environment, but in either case, seated or online, every 7 days you have to take attendance. Every 7 days. So that means that if I set my grade book up to take attendance on Saturday, then next Saturday I better take my attendance. But let's say that I took my attendance a day early. I took it on Friday instead of Saturday. Well, our database, depending on how you had your due date set, would probably say that you did not take it, because it will kind of it doesn't like it when you're outside of your assigned due dates based on how you got your filters set up in Moodle in that attendance module. But what you did is that the clock just reset. So if you took it on Friday, on Monday when they run the report, it may reflect that you missed your attendance. So you go back in there and you take your attendance. Well, the following Friday is when you have to take your attendance again, because now it's every 7 days. So it's every 7 days. And there's federal law, which again indicates how attendance has got to be recorded for federal aid requirements. And if a student misses 14 consecutive days, meaning that for 2 solid weeks that they have an absence in their attendance, then because of this rule here, they're going to get a letter from the registrar's office informing them of this up to the point where they may be removed from the class and have to pay back some of this money until that is reconciled. So that's really the driver. And I don't know no other way to say it, but this is that taking attendance every 7 days is absolutely required. We don't get a pass as adjuncts and faculty. It is the price of admission for teaching at the University of Mount Olive. I don't know no other way to say it. Always, always, always take attendance every 7 days. No reason not to. This is part of the online teaching requirements, and again, we owe you some more feedback on that. And the last thing I wanted to discuss is with reference to the new syllabi that you're seeing in your new 8-week courses that we kind of talked about back in our training session, that these new syllabi now, 2 things are different. And if you don't see this in the syllabi that you have in your course that's live today, or that will come live in the 2nd session, please let us know, and so that we can go get that corrected. All the department chairs will be looking at Moodle shells to make sure that everything is there that we expect to be there, and to make sure that the syllabi are there. But you can aid in that if you do not have this new formatted syllabi in your Moodle shell, please let us know. And the biggest difference is this, is that you're going to see the core learning outcomes associated with this, and you're going to see the course concepts associated with this. And here in the lower right hand corner, hopefully you'll see an August 1, 2019 date. If you do not see this type of information, then you probably have the incorrect syllabi, and we want to make sure that you have the correct syllabi. So please, again, give us the opportunity to try to go get that fixed for you. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I am looking for one more thing here, and to show you the difference. This is what an old syllabi looks like. If you find an old syllabi that looks like this in your Moodle shell that does not have the program learning outcomes associated with it, or when you look down here at the due date or the date that this is March 2019, doesn't have the August due date, again, please let us know. All right, thank you so much for watching this for us. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know. We will try our best to go get you the answer to that. And I cannot express my appreciation enough for all that you do for our students, our school, and our university. And frankly, I don't know where we would be without you. Thank you so much for what you do for us.